You're listening to the Get Out of Your Own Damn Way podcast, episode number 112. I love me some Star Wars, and why wouldn't I? On a deep level, it's really all about the fear and risk surrounding change. So, let me take you on a journey to a galaxy far, far away as we explore the wisdom of some intergalactic masters of change. Welcome to the Get Out of Your Own Damn Way podcast. I'm your host, Krylyn Peters. Each week, I bring you inspiring messages to help you create the life you're meant to lead. Buckle up, buttercups. Hello, Fear Busters and Jedi Masters. Today, the Force will be with us because I can no longer keep my love of Star Wars out of this series on change that I'm doing for my podcast. Because, yeah, it totally fits. And as I was coming up with all sorts of ideas for this series, one of my favorite quotes came up. And I bet you can guess what it is because it's actually the title of this episode. Do or do not, there is no try. And this quote by the great Yoda, Jedi Master, has been something that I have quoted for, at least 20, maybe 30 years to anyone who will listen as it applies to real life. And I could not think of a better quote to go along with change. So today's episode really is exploring the wonderfulness that is Star Wars and how it applies to making changes in your life. And if you think it can't be done, just watch because this is going to be fun. And you can download the handout for today's episode at krylyn.com/112. And I will give you all my little lovely tidbits all in one place so that you don't have to write it down or come back and listen to this a million times. But you certainly can because Star Wars, hello. Anyway, so yeah, Yoda, do or do not, there is no try. Let me just start with this quote. How beautiful is this quote? It's actually so beautiful that I incorporated part of this quote into a song I wrote a long time ago when I was going through my divorce and talking about my responsibility in the divorce. And the song ended up being called Do or Don't. And it was all about taking responsibility. So here's the thing about try. It's one of my words on my watch list. And if you've been in my tribe for any length of time, you know that my watch list is, I call it the watch your language list. I call it a lot of things, but it's on the list of things that are not helpful for you to say. So using the word try tells me that you do not have confidence in what you're doing. And well, that just goes right along with Yoda, right? Doesn't it? So Yoda talks about it's not a matter of trying it. It's a matter of either doing it or not doing it. So you do it or you don't. Do, don't. No try. You either do it or you don't. So here's an example that I love to use. I've been using this for a long, long time to help illustrate this example. People will tell me, oh, I tried to call you. I'm like, what do you mean you tried to call me, right? You either called me or you didn't. When people say I tried to call you, it means they actually called you and could not get a hold of you. So either it went to voicemail, it was busy, but of course, who has a busy signal in this day and age? But otherwise, they were not able to reach you. So they did call you. They didn't try to call you. They didn't try to dial the phone and then their finger broke. Or, the dial pad, just suddenly went off, which of course could happen. But you get my drift. So you either do something or you don't. So that is what my best illustration to help you figure out, are you trying to do something? Are you trying to call me or did you actually call me and couldn't get a hold of me? So using that will help you figure out which one you actually mean. So in Star Wars, this was said while Yoda was training wonderful Luke to become a Jedi. right? So they were training and he was talking about it, and specifically the scene where he's trying to raise the ship out of the swamp and gets really frustrated. So how many times do you get frustrated when you think you can't do something? When you're in the energy of, I can't do this, how does that affect your energy? How does that affect your belief, your confidence, your self-esteem? So it's about shifting your energy and figuring out how to be in that space of believing in yourself versus doubting yourself. So these are some of just the nuggets of wisdom that I get just from that little quote. But I have 3 actual points that I want to make in addition to that, which are themes that I've seen throughout the Star Wars series, and I cannot wait. My son and I are going to go see the new one coming out at the end of the year. We saw the new ones that came out over the last couple years, and we are going to plan to binge watch the entire series to get ready for this next one, just as my son did the last time that the new one came out the last time. Anyway, so here's my 3 points. In Star Wars, just like in life, it's about taking risks. Okay, we have got to get out of our comfort zone in order to get what we want. We have to. There is no escaping it. And the more we try to stay in our comfort zone, the more uncomfortable we can become. And I did an entire episode on being uncomfortable in this whole change process. And I don't remember the episode number off the top of my head, but I will put it in the episode notes so that you can refer back to that if you so choose. But taking risks and getting outside your comfort zone is the only way to get to where you want to be. Because what happens is, let's say we've already gone through some changes, which we all have. I mean, it's inevitable. Life is a series of changes. So we go through changes. It was a little shaky, a little uncomfortable. We finally got to like this settled place of, okay, I'm finally there. I'm finally at my destination. And you just kind of settle there for a minute or 2 or a month or a year or 10. And then that becomes your comfort zone, right? So before you made that change, it was outside your comfort zone, but now you've made that change. Now it's part of your comfort zone. So in order to get to the next level, you have got to venture outside that comfort zone. It's just inevitable. And Star Wars just really talks about that theme all throughout all the episodes, as far as having to do things that you wouldn't normally do and that involve some discomfort. So that is point number 1. Point number 2 is about facing and overcoming your fear. So there's a lot of fear that goes on early on in the episodes of Star Wars, and actually throughout the series for sure, and about this constant need to face your fear, whether it is Darth Vader, whether it is the Empire, whether it is, some fuzzy little animals living in a forest, whatever the fear is, it's about not only facing it, but overcoming it. So understanding that in order to overcome it, you have got to come face to face. And one of my favorite scenes, actually my favorite movie is Empire Strikes Back. So a lot of my scenes that I talk about are in that movie, just like the one that I just talked about with the raising the ship out of the swamp. But there's also that part where Luke is in the cave and he believes that he is facing Darth Vader, and they get the lightsabers out and they're going at it, and then he chops off Darth Vader's head. The mask disappears to reveal that he has just killed himself. So he is actually facing himself or his own fear in that cave. And how many of us think that we are battling something outside of ourselves, when really what we're doing is facing the fear that we have about the truth of who we are? And that's not exactly where I planned to go with this, but oh my gosh, that just came up for me and it makes so much sense. So we're constantly facing this fear that we think is outside of us. We think the fear has to do with climbing the mountain, metaphorically or literally. And it's really about how we're going to handle if our foot slips, how we're going to handle when something doesn't work the way we expect it to. That's the fear that we are facing. And it's really coming face to face with ourselves and our ability to handle whatever it is that comes our way. And I love talking about this. Oh, I love it. I love talking about this part of fear because it's the often untold story. You know, a lot of us are facing a fear we think is a thing outside of us, but it's really an internal thing. It's always an internal journey. Always. And I love that because that also means that we have the ability to deal with it. We have the ability to control how we react to it, how we respond, how we move forward, how we act. And that is a beautiful thing. Absolutely beautiful. So that is wisdom number 2 from Star Wars and how it relates to change. And the last one I'm going to talk about today is enlisting support. And this is a big one. I talked quite a bit in last week's episode about support and about asking for support and our difficulty and challenge with doing that. However, when we look to the dark side, we look to the Star Wars and the Force, we find that, the rebellion could not have done what they did without support, right? They had pilots and generals and an army and a princess and a rogue pilot. There were so many people involved and so many creatures. I don't want to say just, the human species. There were many species involved in that support. But it was always about finding who would be the best fit for the job, right? It was enlisting that support. It was going after it. It was understanding and recognizing that in order to do what you need to do, you have got to have people around you who are committed to the same thing, who have many different roles that complement each other and are all working towards the similar goal. And that is imperative. So I love the way this all unfolds in the Star Wars series. And I also love how it is so telling and so in line with what I'm talking about, this whole series of change. So I just had to take this little break today. I hope that you understand and appreciate that I really needed to bring my love of Star Wars into this discussion about change and to add a little bit of intrigue and levity to this whole discussion. Stay tuned because next week I'm going to go through some additional quotes. So not Star Wars, but additional quotes that I absolutely love when it comes to supporting us in making changes. Thanks for listening to the Get Out of Your Own Damn Way podcast. If you've been inspired, please share the podcast with your friends. You can find us on iTunes or at Krylyn.com. KRYLYN.com.